Hey guys, this is our second video. We're going to keep trying this. I'm going to get a little bit of feedback today. So if you totally hate this method, you're going to get a chance to tell me. And if you totally love this method, then you get a chance to say that too. So we're going to start by updating our table of contents just like we do in normal class. So we're going to date 10/25. Your assignment title will be Coriolis Effect, Wind, and Jet Stream. And your page number is page 35. You can pause the video now if you need a minute to copy that down. If you're ready to move on, keep rolling with me. We're going to move to page 35. So on page 35 in your notebook, we're going to actually be gluing down some of our foldables for today. So you need to find the foldables that look kind of like this. Okay, so you have a bunch of different pieces, half sheets. I'm going to show you exactly where all these things need to get glued. They're pretty particular, so I want you to try to get them in the same place on your page. So I'm going to break my number one rule to start off, and we're going to glue our half sheet on the back of page 34. Okay, so that needs to get glued so that they're sandwiched together when you close your notebook. Then if you'll make sure, this one's the most important, the earth is the right direction up. Here's your North Pole. So you need to make sure it's the top. You can tell because here's the United States. I always check where Florida is because it's easy for me to find. And I know that it should be on the bottom of the United States, not the top. So I'm going to glue it right here with my North Pole at the top. Again, here's Florida on the bottom. And then you have your South Pole down here. So if you'll take a minute to cut all these pieces out, you know that your solid lines are non-cut lines, except for this one right here, which is real confusing. These need to open, but don't cut all the way through this line. And then, of course, your lines go at the bottom. Okay, so these two should open as flaps, or I guess 3. And then go ahead and glue your earth down. All right, we're going to start by reading this quick article on global winds and jet streams. I will read it to you at the end of my video, so if you'll follow through the directions or if you need to skip forward to listen to me read it to you, you're more than welcome to do that. If you don't want me to read it to you, go ahead and just pause now and read by yourself. I'm going to show you a few things I want done as you read, and then I will give you a minute to work on this. So as you read, you'll notice that you have some big key things that are underlined. Obviously, those are going to be your key terms or ideas. I would go ahead and mark those with a color or circle them with your pencil, however you need to do that. These are going to be words that you need to know. So I'm going to mark mine real quick. You guys can go ahead and do that. So I'm not going to have you guys annotate the text per se like we do when we're coding the text, but I do want you to be marking up your text because it's a good sign of what good readers do just in general. So I'm going to show you an example with something that should be familiar to you. This sentence right here, I guess we'll start at the beginning, says wind is constantly occurring in different layers of the atmosphere. Wind is caused by air of different temperatures and densities moving from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. Okay, this is like, duh, we just read this yesterday in class, right? We just took notes on this. So we're going to underline it because I know this is important because I know I wrote it in my notebook yesterday. So I'm going to make a note out here that says high pressure and low pressure. And then I'm going to write wind equals. So I've made note that this is about wind. So when I need to come back and check for information on just plain old wind, I'm going to check right here. I can guess and make an inference that the next little bit is going to be about global winds because that's our next bold word. So if you guys will go ahead and read through this, it's going to be your source of information for your foldables that are on the back side. All right, guys, I know you're sure thinking to yourselves right now, what do I have to have? What's the requirement for my foldables? So I'm going to go through each one of them and tell you what I expect from you for you to earn credit for this assignment. So under each of the foldables, you need to make sure that you accurately and adequately describe whatever it's talking about. So this top one is wind. It says, what is it? And causes. So I know I need 2 bullet points. So if you want to go ahead and mark down 2 bullet points, you'll be ahead of the game. Coriolis effect, I just need you to have one bullet point that tells me what the Coriolis effect is. Really, you need to tell me what the Coriolis effect affects or impacts. And then your jet stream, again, this is just one. So one bullet point right here. Down at the bottom, I need you to have at least 3 sentences that answer this question right here. And then our globe at the top, we are actually going to do together because I want you to make sure that you have all the information you need. So if you want to go ahead and do these, go ahead and pause and then come back when you're ready for the globe. All right, guys, on our globe, we're going to start by labeling these dotted lines. These are lines of latitude. That should be familiar for you from social studies. So I'm going to use pink just because I want it to stick out for you guys. This top one is a 60-degree line. Then you have a 30-degree line, a 0. Hopefully you know what this line is called. It's the equator. Then a 30-degree line and another 60-degree line. So get those lines labeled for me real quick. So for those of you that want to really extend your thinking, you can do some research later about what's happening in between these bands of latitudes. These are actually called Hadley cells, and they're convection cells. We're not going to label them today or draw arrows because it's going to get real messy. So we'll just stick with our labels as planned. This top portion needs to be labeled as the polar easterlies. Okay, then we have the prevailing westerlies. Next up, the trade winds. And again, the trade winds. And prevailing westerlies. And our very last one at the bottom is going to be a polar easterly as well. Okay, so I've used a black pen. I'm going to go ahead and be writing over these. So if you need to get a marker or a crayon from a friend, you are more than welcome to do that, guys. I'm going to use a light color over them so that you can still see. So we're going to draw some arrows up here going this direction. Whoop. If you think about your compass rose that you use in social studies, you have north, south, east, and west. I always remembered it by saying never eat soggy waffles. You may have a different way to remember it. We know that winds are named from the direction in which they come. We learned that with land and sea breezes. So if you think about the direction that they're coming from the east and moving west. So of course they're easterlies. We're going to go ahead and put some arrows pointing from the west for your prevailing westerlies. Trade winds, they actually come from the east. Hopefully you're noticing a pattern. Okay, these trade winds are going to curve up in this same direction. Hopefully from your reading, you figured out why this happens. If not, go back and reread. Whoop, add one more. Okay, so your map should look something like this, or your globe, I'm sorry. I know it looks a little crazy, but this should give you a pretty good breakdown of what direction the wind is coming from and where it's moving to. Okay, if you have this done, then you can go ahead and either finish or start your foldable flaps. All right, guys, while you keep working, I'm going to finish up my foldables. I'm going to add some illustrations. You know I'm going to color because I love color. And then I'm going to make sure I have all the information I need. So at this point, if you are ready to work independently, you can shut off the video and move on. Once you finish all your work, you need to make sure that you come see me and show me your completed notebook. If you would like to stay with me for a read aloud of the passage, then hold tight. All right, for those of you sticking with me to hear this passage read aloud, I'm going to read through it. You can pause it at any point that you need to go back and annotate or mark. Remember, I want you to be underlining and making notes. You don't have to use the codes that we use in class, but you do need to be annotating. So we're going to start right back at the top. Global winds and jet stream. Wind is constantly occurring in different layers of the atmosphere. Wind is caused by air pressure of different temperatures and densities, moving from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. Global winds blow steadily across the earth in long paths that almost cover the entire surface and steer weather in certain directions. Our earth has global patterns of wind that constantly flow. These patterns begin at the equator, where the sun's rays are strongest. Here, air is heated, becoming less dense, and moves north as well as south from the equator. As it cools and becomes more dense, some of the air sinks back towards the equator, causing a convection cycle in the air. The warm and steady winds that move towards the equator are called trade winds. These winds occur between 0 and 30 degrees north and south of the equator. Although trade winds move north and south, they do not move directly up and down. The movement of these winds is curved due to the Coriolis effect. Because the earth is constantly spinning, it causes the winds that move directly north and south to curve just a bit. There are two other types of global winds as you get farther from the equator. Between the 30 and 60 degrees north and south of the equator, the prevailing westerly winds occur. These winds that come from the west and move east are responsible for much of the weather in the United States. The polar easterly winds occur around 60 degrees latitude in both hemispheres. Cool air from the east spreads and sinks over the surface of the earth of the north and south poles and flows away from each pole, turning west by the Coriolis effect. Above the Earth's surface, there is global high-altitude wind and a troposphere layer of the atmosphere called a jet stream. The jet stream flows at over 200 miles per hour from west to east and one or more bands across the globe. The jet stream is caused by two air masses in the troposphere that have extremely different temperatures. The greater the temperature difference between the air masses, the faster the winds blow. The jet stream can steer weather across the country and give a boost to airplanes traveling from west to east. For example, it might take 5 hours to get from Washington to Massachusetts, but it would take an hour longer to go from Massachusetts to Washington. All right, guys, now that we've finished the reading, you can either rewind and pick back up on parts that you may have missed, or you can read it over again by yourself. Remember that you need to make sure that you have these notes filled in. Your flaps need to have information in it. If you need the requirements again, back up the video and you can get the information there. Once you have everything complete on this page, you can come see Miss Long and I'll let you know what to do next. Remember, you are always allowed to send me a Canvas message or raise your hand and ask for a question. If you're going to raise your hand, though, wait patiently. Remember, you're not the only student in the class. All right, guys, good luck.